Reimagining Success, special bonus episode. You're listening to the Reimagining Success podcast, where we help you design a business and a life that allows you freedom from the 9-to-5. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg, ex-corporate good girl, now a business mentor and coach, author, mum of 2, and I'm here to help you create more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. Now let's get started with redefining success outside of the 9-to-5. So before we dive into this special episode, I wanted to give a little bit more background, a bit more context, because this really is a special episode. So if you've been part of my community for a while, or if you've perhaps just landed on this podcast, for context, the Reimagining Success podcast is a podcast I've been doing for the last 4 years. I believe strongly in this bigger mission of redefining and in particular defining for you what success looks like, whatever your circumstances, whatever your situation. However, I've been focusing specifically, and I do focus specifically on the transition usually out of what I call the corporate 9-to-5 and into working for yourself. That's what my business One Step Outside does. In my coaching, I help experienced professionals design a business and a lifestyle that brings them more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment, as I say, outside the 9-to-5. However, in the journey, I suppose, of doing this, I am always curious about different moments in which we pivot and are forced to or choose to redefine success. And so I've been exploring working with professional athletes and sports people who are essentially forced into early retirement at the end of a professional rugby career, a cricket career, whatever that may be, and need to reimagine success, a life, a career that doesn't anymore involve being on that public stage, being lauded, literally cheered on the arena, as it were, for being at the top of their game, fans, absolutely enthralled by their performance, having the incredible camaraderie of the team and all these things, and actually being in your dream career, and then having to redefine that. Another group of people I've spoken to, of course, is in the military, where again, there's an early retirement where you come back from a very specific working context. Again, the camaraderie, the regimented lifestyle, and there's this huge emptiness when you come back from that. So those are a couple of the areas I've explored. But of course, there are so many other situations, and in particular, trauma and very traumatic, adverse circumstances, whether we're born with them or they happen or whatever it may be. So in the context of the work that I do, I'm part of a podcasting community, and I've been matched up for the last few months with various people. And let's be honest, most of them haven't really led to anything. A couple have led to some interviews and so on. But I was really intrigued when I came across Sam Mitchell. And I'm going to read his bio here from the website, because I think that's far better than for me to do so. And when we talked together in that quick little chat, we really were aligned on this idea of redefining success. He very generously felt that it resonated with him, with his audience, and we explored some opportunities to collaborate together. We came up with this idea for a panel. It was all quite spontaneous, and Sam did an incredible job of pulling together a panel. We ended up not doing it as a live session. We've recorded it in an intimate setting, but we're now really happy to share it here on the podcast. It is a little outside of the ordinary in terms of the interview guests and the particular focus, and yet, not so surprisingly, I'd say, the themes, the insights are very much universal. So this is Sam's bio. So Sam Mitchell is a high-functioning human being on the autism spectrum, but he has a mission to show people that he is not broken, does not need to be fixed. There is no normal in this world, and he is successful with autism. Sam wants to celebrate the successes of all. He embraces who he is and feels as though everyone should do the same. His mission has caught on, and this powerful and extraordinary idea is catching on and getting the world's attention. People are differently abled, not disabled. Autism Rocks and Rolls Corporation is Sam's organisation. It was started by 20-year-old Sam in October 2019. It began with a simple interest in media when he was a junior in high school and has led to him becoming an entrepreneur, creating his own non-profit and podcast, Autism Rocks and Rolls Corporation. His non-profit and advocacy offers public speaking, podcast coaching, podcast editing, sponsorships, ad space, merchandise, public speaking, educational supplements, guest appearances, and guest space on his podcast. So that's at autismrocksandrolls.com, autismrocksandrolls.com. So I hope you'll forgive me that longer intro. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce the so-called panel discussion. So Sam and I took it in turns interviewing our guests. And to tell you who the guests are, first of all, we have Sonny von Cleveland. He is an event and portrait photographer in California. However, he has a very interesting and challenging background, and I'll let him explain that throughout the interview. The second guest was incredibly Sam's grandfather, Joe Pursell. He was born in Indiana, 6th of 7 kids at home with no doctor. And again, he has a very interesting story to tell. And again, I loved his insights, and I was humbled by the things, the personal reflections that both Sonny and Joe shared. So many thanks to Sam for the idea, and many thanks for putting together these fantastic, unexpected guests. Thank you to Joe, thank you to Sonny. And without further ado, here is our discussion on reimagining success in the face of adversity. Okay, well, welcome everybody to our round table, I suppose we can call it, although there's 4 of us. I'm not sure if it's a square table, but we're here, a triangle on Zoom. And we're talking about reimagining success. And my name is Anna Lindberg. My podcast is called Reimagining Success, and it's through my podcast that I met Sam. And Sam and I found this common ground in the topic of what does success mean, maybe challenging some definitions, some conventional perspectives on what that should mean. And we toyed with some different ideas, and Sam came up with the idea of having this panel or round square table that we're doing today. And he very kindly found these 2 lovely gentlemen who are going to be talking with us today. So we've got Sonny von Cleveland and we've got Joe Pursell, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But just to tell you where I'm coming from, and I think I'm coming from a very specific perspective, but also a very general perspective, I look at redefining success through the lens of having left my corporate job. That was the initial trigger for me. So 2013, I left my big full-time marketing career. And since then, I've been questioning a lot of these things around what's actually important to me, what matters, where should I be spending my time? And that's been my focus. But I'm very passionate about the bigger idea of questioning some of these conventional assumptions again, and I'm really excited to be here to hear some, I think, very different perspectives from you all, but I think also some common themes. And so, Sam, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about what you do, and then we can hand over to these other guys.
All righty. So, hello everyone. My name is Sam Mitchell. What I do is I run a podcast like her called Autism Rocks and Rolls. And it is about autism and how we cope with daily struggles. Most of my life, I've been bullied and excluded. So I've had to reimagine success throughout my whole entire life. And that's kind of the mission, is success is what you make out of it. No one gets to honestly determine that.
I love that. And maybe, Sam, if I can ask you right away, how would you define success personally?
I would define success as what you make out of it. So in my eyes, I believe that meeting a celebrity and getting out of bed equals each other out because you're accomplishing something. If there's accomplishment at the end of the day, it's success.
I love that. And do you know what? When I did my research on this, I Googled, as you do, success. And success is actually the accomplishment of a goal, of an aim or a purpose. So as you said, I think you get to decide what the aim or purpose is, and it will be different over the years depending on your situation. And that's what's so beautiful. You get to choose yourself what it is. So love that.
And it's hard, though, when society sometimes doesn't agree with you, when they think that's not an accomplishment. Anyone can do that. No, they can't.
Well, and something that's very difficult for someone could be very easy for someone else, and so on, right? So that's where the differences come in, I suppose. can you introduce the lovely gentleman on your, I guess, left, right, depending on where you're looking? Who's this? Who's
Oh,
this?
he's going to speak and introduce himself, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm Joe Pursell. I'm Sam's grandfather, actually, which, like he told you, I'm always here to fill in. I've been his grandfather his whole life. And whenever Sam was diagnosed with autism, I was one of the last people to know because his mother was afraid I was going to say, no, he's not. He just is this way. He's that way. But it turns out that him being autistic is the best thing that ever happened to us. He won't give up. He's a smart boy. He must take that from his grandmother.
That's me. But tell him about your story. I mean, you kind of have a story to share.
Well, he said that you guys. I remember the podcast that he did with you guys, but no, he wanted me to come and kind of tell the story about how I was raised in poverty and somehow or another dragged my way out along with 6 other siblings, and it turns out that I turned out pretty good, to live in a home with an alcoholic and being frozen and starved and stuff. But all of us, every kid in my family turned out to be, prosperous because we chose. We had 2 choices. Take the bad example and go with it, or understand that this isn't right. In some way or another, we all figured out that, okay, we're going to choose the good part, and here we are today with Sam, but, like you were saying, success, I had a good job. We started out, we had nothing, me and my wife. We bought some property, chopped down logs and built a log cabin and raised our kids, I guess kind of how hippies did, back then, but my kids turned out good, and, we've survived. And I did get a job, and I started moving up into the company, and I forgot who I was. I thought, wait a minute, I just pay people to do everything for me now, because I'm making money. So one day I just quit, and here I am today. I've been just surviving for the last 20 years, just the same way I did the first 20 years, and it's just all a personal thing. You got to make a decision. You're going to do right, or you're going to do wrong. And everybody knows the difference. We chose right.
I love that.
That's friend Sonny did. I'll be honest, he didn't choose right for a while. But Sonny, why don't you tell us how you went from wrong to right?
Did you just hijack Anna's podcast? I like it.
I hijacked her a little bit.
No, my name's Sonny von Cleveland. I am a professional photographer and a cat cafe owner in Palm Springs, California. I define success as happiness. For me, success is not measured by accomplishment. Success is not measured by material gain or your financial bank account. To me, success is waking up happy. And if you live a happy life, then you are successful. I grew up in small town Michigan. I was molested from the time I was 5 years old until I was 10 by 4 different men. I caught a felony when I was 7 years old because I didn't know how to process the emotion that was happening, the trauma that I was going through and enduring. And I fell in love with the attention from the police because they were men that didn't want to hurt me. They were disciplinarian figures, and I was craving that as a child in a single mother home. And so I continued to break the law because that's the way you get the attention of the police. And by the time I was 13, I was into drugs and alcohol and all kinds of wonderful things that kids should not be into. And I was sent to prison when I was 16. It was a horribly traumatic experience for me. I was raped the first week I was there, which turned me into a very violent gangbanger. I joined a gang, and for the next 5.5 years, I spent all that time immersing myself in gang culture. And I was released when I was 21, and I was nowhere near mentally fit to be released. And I ran terror for 2 years in the world for about 22 months. Got a couple of women pregnant, robbed drug dealers consistently. That was my main source of income. And then eventually got arrested again and was sent back to prison for 12 years. And in 2008, I kind of lost my mind a little bit when my brother had an affair with my oldest son's mother, and they had a child together, and I just kind of lost touch with everything. Got into a pretty violent altercation, was sent to the hole for 5 years, solitary confinement, where I met a Muslim man named Mallory Bey who changed my life. And we spent the next 19 months doing some deep introspective psychoanalysis on myself. I read every self-help book I could get my hands on. I learned how to process emotion. I learned how to let go of hate and anger, and learn how to see the world through the lens of love and kindness. And that man helped me to discover passion and goals and happiness. And then I dedicated the rest of my life to helping people learn how to overcome trauma and be successful no matter what you've been through in your life. So I spent the last 5 years of my time tutoring and counseling and mentoring inmates on how to get over things and how to set themselves up for success when you get out. And I was released 6 years ago. I started a metal band and was signed to a label relatively quickly, toured the country as a rap metal vocalist in my own band, and it accepted the challenges that came with that as well. There's ups and downs. And I got out of the music game and started a corporate career. I believe in manifestation. I believe that you can manifest anything you want to, right? There's no human being, Sam or anybody else, that cannot accomplish anything they want to in this life. I walked into a staffing company for a part-time job and walked out with a six-figure career. Because I go for goals, right? And so I met the owner and I told him my story and we talked, and he loved it and he hired me on the spot. And so I started this wonderful corporate career, and life was going really good. And then COVID hit, and of course it did, right? Like, why would that not happen to me? But instead of staying down, I practice what I preach. You get up every time, no matter what happens, you find a way. There's always something. So I jumped on YouTube and I started making YouTube videos, and I blew up relatively quickly to the tune of about 50,000 subscribers within a couple months period time, and started making a decent amount of money off of YouTube. And I endured that path for probably a year and a half until a very bad breakup. And then I was hacked and my YouTube channel got deleted. And that's when I met my wife on a podcast, which is fascinating. She has a podcast called Boot Camp for the Mind and Soul. And when you know, right? Like the moment we saw each other, it was like, I love that person. And then we started to build, right? You don't ever give up. You don't quit. So I left Ohio. I moved to California. We're opening up a cat cafe, which is an incredible, frustrating, nightmare, exciting journey in life. And I started a professional photography company because I love photography. So I got my camera and started a photography business because there's nothing you cannot do. And I am happier than I've ever been in my life. And that to me is the cornerstone of success.
Beautifully told. And they say that you have 4 careers these days, I think, over your lifetime, but it sounds like you've had a few more already and perhaps many more still to come. So it'll be interesting to see where you take it.
Just never know what happens next year.
That's exciting. And I love that success as happiness. And you brought that around beautifully. I should say that Sam and I are doing this together. So he's not hijacking in any way. We're very much co-hosts here. So
I was just messing with him. Sam's my dude.
I think both you, Sonny, and Joe mentioned some things which lead really nicely into our first set of questions that Sam has. So take it away, Sam.
All right. So our first one I want to talk about here is turning things into a positive message, or what she calls turning lemons into lemonade. So I want to start off with this. So how have each of you tried to change your challenge into a positive message the world can hear?
Go ahead.
I wear my story on my sleeve. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't hide anything. I believe that authenticity is the key to translating your story so that people can receive it, right? And so I think you turn those challenges into successes by wearing your story and using your voice and showing, not telling, but showing what you can accomplish.
Anything you'd like to add, Mr. Pursell?
Well, I'm not real good at interviews. You can probably tell.
I think you're fantastic.
Well, thank you. Maybe I'll start my own podcast.
There's an idea.
I just feel like that no matter what you do in life, you choose. Like I said earlier, you can see what's going on around you. And when I was 5 years old, I knew it wasn't good, for what was happening, and I knew when I grew up, got married, I wasn't going to beat my wife up. It was just something that a kid can figure out. But I've always heard that how you're raised, that's the way you're going to be. And it turns out that's not the truth. You get to choose every day, every minute. You're choosing this and that. And even at a young age, I thought, I'm not going to do this. If I can just make it a few more years and I don't have to depend on these people to take care of me, then I can do it. So everything just is easy. Once I got old enough to do it myself, I thought, this is easy, because I'm deciding myself, and there's nobody there that's holding me down. I'm not looking out the window. Are they coming home, or are they never coming back? I guess like a dog would do when you leave, when you're 5 years old, you don't know if they're ever coming home, So, you just have to decide what's good, what's bad, and always go with the good.
And I just admire the fact that you and your family figured that out, because not everyone does.
Not everyone does. And like I said, there's 7 kids in my family. Every single one of them figured it out. None of them are drunks. None of them, abuse their family. They somehow or another figured it out. We're all old now and we've made it. And I always figured if I can make it till I die, then I'm successful.
There's the definition of success right there.
Yeah. Making it till you break it, I guess.
All right.
Now, Sonny, I want to know this. So when you were released from prison and they basically kind of just threw you out, as I like to say, or they basically just like, okay, you're out, here you go. What did you do to turn the story around?
Well, the second time I prepared myself. The first time I had no idea what to do or what was going on. I was 21 and I had no idea. So I was a train wreck. But the second time I prepared myself for what's to come. And that's the reason why recidivism is so high, right? Because a lot of times, if you don't understand the tools that are available to you when you're locked up, you won't utilize them. And so the second time around, I was able to utilize a lot of the tools that are available and prepare myself for coming out. It's when you're released from that, and it's not just physical penitentiary, right? This goes for people that go through depression or anxiety or have panic attacks. Yeah, that's kind of like a prison too, right? So like it's the mental prison. When you finally gain some semblance of freedom, it's important to keep in mind what you're passionate about and what keeps you going, right? So I wake up every day and just stepping outside and feeling the air on my face reminds me of freedom and why you never want to take it for granted again, right? A lot of people, most people don't lose their freedom, whether mentally or physically, whether you go to a prison or you go through a mental depression. People take for granted their freedom. And when you go through a traumatic experience like that, it changes you, right? And so you have to keep cognizant of what drives you, and you keep that in the forefront of your mind. Like Joe did there. Like, it wasn't easy, right? And so every day you have to wake up and keep that goal in your mind and stay focused every day. It's work, right? You can't just, if you lose focus of that, you'll lose your path and you'll deviate.
Yeah, and it's easy to do. I mean,
It's
I've
very
seen
easy to do.
people lose paths. I've seen people drop out of school. And thankfully, there's now other paths. I mean, I was taught in my family, college isn't the only way in. I mean, there's other ways.
I got a GED. That's it.
And you're a business owner. Or getting one. Now, I want to know.
Two.
Oh, two. Yeah, my bad. What would you say about your difficulties? How have your difficulties made you into who you are today?
So I'm a big fan of the Stoics, and Marcus Aurelius has a wonderful example of what we call amor fati, right? Which is loving the process, right? Loving fate. Every challenge is an opportunity. Every obstacle is an opportunity. There's something to learn from everything that you go through. So you learn to love the process. When things don't go right, you love the process, right? You learn opening a cat cafe in Palm Springs, right? You think it's a simple process, like, okay, well, here's this. And then a year later, you're 4 times over budget. You're stressed out to the max, but you've learned, right? I know how to read architectural plans. I know how to be a general contractor. I know what goes where and what doesn't go where, what's allowed, what isn't allowed. I know permitting processes and franchising processes. And while all of that was very stressful, you learn from it and you grow. So you can either look at a challenge that's in front of you as an obstacle that blocks you from moving forward, or you can see it as an opportunity to learn, grow, and proceed better than you were before. And so that's what I think about challenges.
And it sounds to me like that you learned a lot of the same things that I've learned, because like I've told Sam, that no one cared, when I was a kid. They didn't care. And I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to spell. I learned that later in life. But I got a job where the guy believed in me, and I thought, I can't do this. I'm stupid. But he kept saying, no, all I got to do is show you, and the same deal. I've learned to, read blueprints and do takeoffs and do, anything that I was put in front of me. I thought, just show me. I finally figured out, just show me, just tell me, just give me the concept, and I always had the ability, give me the concept. I can fill in the blanks, and I always had that ability, and I didn't even know it until this guy, no, you can do it here. And I thought, wait a minute, I don't know how to do this. You'll figure it out. And I did. Okay, I'll figure it out. Figured it out. He was right. All you got to do is just show me. Just show me.
Self-doubt is the number one enemy to success.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, it is.
Right. And I want to know, throughout your difficulties, you had to, in a few words or maybe more words, what's the biggest life lesson you've taken?
Love. For me, love. Love everything, love everybody, and understand what that means, right? Like, there's no room in your life for hate, right? And hate doesn't necessarily mean racism or being a misogynist or being anti something. Hate can mean not wanting to do something. Hate can mean being ignorant to something because you don't understand it, right? So it's, for me, love is the number one key to everything. If you learn to see life through love, when you meet somebody, you don't understand what that person has been through in their life. You don't know how their day's going. You don't know how their week has gone, their month, their year, their whole life. And if you approach them from the lens of love and kindness, you can not only change your life, but you can change their life. You can make their life better, because you don't know if they're just looking for a handshake or a hug or a smile, and that could change their entire perspective in life, right? So love.
That's so powerful. It's so easy to judge other people, isn't it? You yourself excuse your own behavior because, I was having a bad day or whatever it is, but with someone else, they're evil because they're doing all these things. But actually, as you say, giving people the benefit of the doubt and being kind and compassionate as a first step, I think is an important message that we could all do with implementing more.
Thanks.
I agree. Love. I mean, you made it easy for me. Yeah, because going back to some of the things that I endured as a child, for some crazy reason, my father loved me, and I felt it. He never pushed me away. I could kiss him anytime I wanted. I could hug him. I could climb on him. Never pushed me away, even though he was stupid, and he'd done everything he ever did was stupid, except that. And that, looking back on it, and I've looked back on it many times, that's what kept me going, that I never got pushed away, and it never, I carried that on with my kids, my family, my friends, and my whole family. They all hug and kiss, and, just, we all love each other, so
beautiful.
You couldn't have said it any better.
Think you wanted to go on to
I'd love to build on that because it's obviously, it sounds a lot of understanding who you are. So Salmon and I talked a lot about the importance of self-awareness and knowing your own strengths, but also maybe knowing your weaknesses, your opportunities, where you might need to reach out for help, I suppose. And Joe, I think your story, I know you said you were called sort of the poor dirty kids at school and then the hillbillies trying to fit in, and yet you were able somehow, despite that upbringing and so on, to choose right, choose good, and so on, as you've been saying. So I'm curious, what are the strengths in you that you've discovered, I guess, over the years? What do you understand about yourself and the incredible power, I guess, the strengths that you have?
Well, like I said, once I figured out that all you have to do is show me and tell me, and I'm not really stupid. Just whenever, talking about being the hillbilly kid, just out of nowhere, my parents moved to Las Vegas from down in the holler, and
that's a switch.
It was like, I felt like Jethro Bodine dumped out on Fremont Street in Las Vegas. I didn't know anything. I'd never been to town. And then here the bus stops right at the end of Fremont Street. I climb off the bus and I'm standing there with pants too short, crew cut hair, I don't know. And I just dumped in there but it gave me, the ability to see, extreme, went from the shack to Las Vegas, and I'd never been to town,
Culture shock.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know about culture shock. I didn't even know about that. But it gave me the opportunity to have to adjust really quick,
Stay on your feet like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just overnight. They threw me in school, and people at school, like, where are you from? You from Texas? Because of my accent. I don't know. Where's Texas? But, it was quite the shock, and I just had to somehow learn how to adapt. And it helped. It helped me a lot because now we're back in Indiana. I made it back alive, because even when we went to Las Vegas, we had no discipline. We had nobody really caring. Me and my brother, we just run the streets. I got a job, always had money, had a car I had a car before I had my license, so, we just had to learn by ourselves, nobody taught us.
And there's this idea of, growth mindset versus fixed mindset, because I think at school, we are actually told you're good at this, you're not good at that. And actually the fact that you're able to, as you said, figure it out somehow, I don't know yet, but I will. I'm adaptable. Yeah, absolutely.
The school passed me on through. I never went to school. I went to a school called Las Vegas Urban Evening High, which was for adults. But I started there when I was in the 10th grade, and they didn't care. They just passed me on through. And when I came back to Indiana, I went to a small country school, same school that Sam graduated from. And it was like a real school, and I made good grades and, I made it back alive. I have to just say that. I made it back alive. We moved back to the holler, which I loved it.
It's a part of who you are. I mean,
yeah, that's who I was. And I didn't realize that the whole time I was in Las Vegas, that's what I was looking for. We'd go to the mountains to see the woods. I wanted to get back into the woods. It was crazy, but I made it back alive. Here I am.
And you talked about quitting that job as well because you were losing sight of who you were. Can you tell us more about that? What was that process? How did you realize that wasn't the right path for you?
Well, like I said, when we were younger, we just started out, my wife and me. And I said, if we could, it goes back to being a kid. If we could just find a piece of property with some trees, we can build a house, And luckily, there's an old man. He's dead now, but he sold us some property, cheap, on contract. No down payment, and we just started cutting down trees and stacking them, hauling rocks out of the creek, making the foundation for our house. And we were in our early 20s. I couldn't imagine anybody I know now that would even in their early 20s go down and cutting trees and building a home. But I raised my kids in that log cabin, and but the job that I had, the guy kept trying to get me to buy new houses and cars, and he was trapping me. Like, the more houses I get, the more cars I get, I can't quit. And he didn't want me to quit because apparently I was doing my job. But one day I don't pay people to fix things for me. I fix them myself, and who am I? And then I just one day went and quit, and I haven't really worked since 20 years ago. I mean, I've worked for myself, contracting and things like that. But
so you done some contract work, knowing you, not like for a week, but like for a day you work for one of our family friends.
And it, and then one day I decided I didn't want to do that anymore either. So I just stay in the holler. I don't want to go to town.
Well, that trap, as you say, of buying things and then having to, that's very familiar to me too. Kids here, whether it's private school or fancy cars or big houses, we're trapped in that commercialism that we then have to stay in a job we don't like and so on. So that's definitely a familiar trend.
Money doesn't mean anything to me. As long as I have enough money to feed I don't have to feed my family anymore. They feed themselves, just me and my wife. It just doesn't take much to exist, and as long as you're existing and you're happy, what do you need?
Yeah, there's something you said that kind of hit home the other day, and I kind of want to bring it up. It may kind of go, but you don't need money to have fun, kind of even. Remember Fowler's?
Yeah.
No money was involved.
Yeah.
It resonated with me.
That's something else Sam got me into. He gets me into stuff.
I love that.
But that's what I exist for.
Yeah. Well, speaking of YouTube as well, we're quite addicted to watching these programs of people who are living out in the woods, surviving on, just fixing things themselves and so on. And it's so far removed from our life in the city, so it's there's definitely an appeal which I think is growing for people. Sonny, what about you over these years? Obviously through the trauma you experienced, through prison, through being in a metal band, through being a photographer and having a cat cafe now and so on, what are the core strengths, I guess, that you can see now looking back? I know Steve Jobs talked about connecting the dots. How can you see the strengths and the self-awareness that you've gained over these incredible experiences you've had?
I think self-awareness is another one of the core principles that help you in life, that propel you towards success or whatever you want. Again, success to me is happiness. So you can be successful in whatever it is that you want. If having a cabin in the holler is what makes you happy, then you are a massive success, right? Like you are the pinnacle of success in this instance, if that's the goal. I think perseverance and understanding that every single thing that we have ever been through has put us where we are is the core of the challenge and learning from it. Had you not gone to Vegas and ran those streets, you wouldn't be where you are, because everything that you've ever endured gave you an appreciation for what you didn't have. And getting back to that holler was your goal. So being removed from it showed you how much you wanted it, and you earned your way back to it and solidified it. And I think along the way, especially through schooling, I think that school, it can help, but I think it really hurts, because it's limiting, right? And it limits what we can do. It tells us, like you said earlier, what you can do, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And I don't think anybody's not good at anything. I think if they want to apply themselves, they're good at anything. You can be good at whatever you want to do. There's no such thing as a natural, right? You hear that term a lot, like, oh, he's just a natural. No, he's not. He's somebody that applied himself. And that's it. Like, anybody can be a musician. Anybody can be an artist. Anybody can be a painter. Anybody can be a photographer. It's just whether or not you have a passion for it and you apply yourself. And so I think the core there is self-awareness. Know what you want, know what makes you happy, know what doesn't make you happy, know what you don't want, and have the courage to face those things. Because a lot of times self-doubt will creep in and we feel that we're unworthy of something. We feel we're unworthy of happiness and unworthy of success because we're bearing some type of hidden shame or some type of guilt that we haven't released or processed yet. And that is the biggest hindrance to moving forward. So we get content. We settle for the life that we have. Well, my bills are paid, my kids are fed, so I'm content. And you're not happy. And happiness is success for me. So you have to be happy. And you have to face, if you're not happy, change it. Because like Joe said earlier, everything's a choice. If you're unhappy in life, it's because you choose to be. Nobody forces you. You can't be forced in this lifetime, especially in 2022. You can't be forced to do anything. You do what you want to do. And if you're unhappy with your life, it's because you've chosen to be unhappy.
And what I'm hearing through both of your stories is this idea of resilience and persistence and grit. And Angela Duckworth talks about grit being two things. One is the having that clear purpose and passion for the long-term goal. And the second piece is that resilience of showing up and even through the inevitable difficulties, still turning those lemons into lemonade, I guess, as the saying goes, and picking yourself back up again and trying again and so on. The contentment piece is also really interesting because we were interested in the idea of getting stuck in your comfort zone and the importance of stretching yourself. Sam, do you want to dig into that topic a little bit?
So now I would like to know what the comfort zone is. I think at both points in our time, you've had to step outside your comfort zone. I know she's had to step outside her comfort zone. I know I've had to. I know Sonny has, but why is it important not to stay in the comfort zone all the time? Why do we need to expand it or get out of there or out of the bubble?
Well, even being part of Sam's podcast and stuff, that's kind of out of my comfort zone. But at the same time, I kind of like to do it because it's kind of exciting, you know.
And I think
I could screw up and, you know, and seem like, you know, what's he doing on that podcast? He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I do it anyway, you know, because it's you know, it's just makes me feel good, you know, especially after it's over. You know, after it's over, you know, you kind of feel the adrenaline settling back down, you know, and stuff. But if you don't, then you'll never accomplish anything, you know, because I guess my comfort zone, I'm in my comfort zone. You know, I was talking about the cabin and holler, but I had a whole life before that, you know. Now I'm just settled down. You know, I've already done this, done that. You know, I've settled down. Now I'm home. You know.
That's right.
And there's a beauty in the comfort zone too, right? We talk about it as a negative thing, but if you're choosing to be there after having been outside of it for so long, again, it's the choice, right? And that's an intentional thing rather than it happening accidentally, I suppose.
Well, let me ask you guys this. What tips can you give to those who are having a tough time right now choosing right from wrong? Because choosing right from wrong is not the easiest thing to do. I mean, we all make mistakes in life. I get that. I made mistakes. You made mistakes. she's made mistakes. Everyone probably here has made mistakes. But how can we get from someone to be like, okay, you know what? I've done bad. How can I shift to good? Because they want to do, because we get in that, people get there where, okay, I've done some bad. I think I need to stop. I need to go be a hero, I guess, in a sense. How can we get there? Or what tips can you give to get there? You know they got to get there on their own, but what advice can you offer to help?
For me, it'd be hard to give advice because I'd have to look at the individual and say, okay, what are you all about? Because I know people who would no way get out of their comfort zone. You couldn't make them. You could feed them, and they wouldn't do it. And it has to do with the, their state of mind. Or they're just way too nervous to get out and do it. But so it would be hard for me to give anybody any advice. It'd have to be an individual, I guess. I don't know. I guess I don't have an answer.
That's fair. That was kind of an answer.
My advice would be understand that everything's a choice. Again, realize that you are where you are because you choose to be there, and that you don't have to be. You can be anywhere you want and do whatever you want. Understand that we all fail. Everybody fails, right? Mm. Michael Jordan is famous for quoting, "I've failed 1,000,000 times. That's why I'm successful." Mm. Right? Your failures are what teach you. They're your lessons in life. I often refer to sharks. Sharks are born swimming, right? Sharks don't get an opportunity. Sharks aren't taught anything. They don't learn. They come right out of the womb instantly swimming, right? And you learn it. And so you use your instinct, you trust your instincts, you follow your heart, and you quelch doubt. Whenever you doubt something, sit down and think for a minute. I think we underestimate the power of thinking in life. There's not enough emphasis in education on the art of thinking. You look back at the great philosophers of time, and empires and civilizations were built by thinkers, and the world was ran by thinkers. And now it's by emotion, right? Everybody's based on emotion because everybody wants a heart or a like on a Facebook post or an Instagram post, and everybody's chasing those little likes and those little hearts. And that's where they get their sense of fulfillment. And it all comes back to thinking. If you just sit down and take 10, 15 minutes a day, every morning to think, what do I want to do with my day? What do I want to accomplish? How do I make that happen? What does that look like? How do I feel? Am I happy? Am I upset? Why am I upset? And just think, right? If you sit and you think, you can work out anything. I'm unhappy because this is happening. So how can I stop this from happening? I can make the choice to do this, and then that stops, right? And then it's literally thinking your way through life. Napoleon Hill has one of the most amazing manuscripts in the world called Think and Grow Rich. And it's not I think I'm a millionaire, so I am, but it's thinking like a millionaire that will make you a millionaire. You know what I mean? So my advice is to think.
That's a good idea. That is. Now, this is actually for you. So you talked about this culture shock with the 180, I call it, turn in Las Vegas, where you start having food on the table, you start having, a place to shower, maybe. Mm-hmm. What would you say is like the biggest moment you realized that you were stepping outside your comfort zone? You saw you were going down more, and what was the moment you thought, my life's changing? The incident that I stepped off of that bus, and like I said, the bus station was at the end of Fremont Street. My younger brother was there, and I remember him saying, "Mom, can I show him the lights?" And I remember, and I've actually drawn a picture of myself, a silhouette of me and him standing there with Fremont Street, and we're at the end, literally at the end of Fremont Street, looking down the street, and I knew, that I wasn't in Kansas anymore.
Right.
This is different. This is way, way different. It was instant. I knew, that things had changed, and it did. It was a real home. Real home. Had running water, had lights. Had everything that everybody else had. But so it was changed that minute.
Fremont Street is a sight to behold.
It is, but back then it was nothing like it is now. You know, back then it was just a street. You know, we thought it was pretty cool until they built that canopy and stuff over. But that's where we cruised every Friday and Saturday night.
That's right.
Back in the day, right?
Yeah.
You'll have to show us, by the way, at some point.
I'm not getting all these references. I know Las Vegas. I'm going to have to look up some of these streets and towns. I'm not sure about the geography, but I understand that.
It's downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And it's all lights. It's all casinos and lights. So
now Sonny, for you had a very limited amount of space when you were in prison. You were behind bars and very limited. So how did you get successful while being behind bars and having this very limited amount of space and this probably jail cell that I'm envisioning, which probably consists of a bench and a toilet that I think would really be
you learn to be free on the inside, right? Like your mind is an amazing thing, right? Like our brain is just amazing, and our ability to think and transpose our self is amazing. Like you're only limited by what you think, right? So you see opportunity where in whatever situation you're in. So I'm in an 8x9 cell with nothing but a bed, a bench, and a toilet. What can I do? Instead of, oh man, I'm stuck here. Oh, I can't do anything. What can I do? I can read. I literally taught myself to be a motivational speaker inside that cell. I paced back and forth, and in my mind, I'm in an auditorium with thousands of people, and I'm the crazy person that the COs are walking down, and you hear somebody mumbling to themselves in a cell. I'm that guy. I'm the one that's talking to myself in the cell. You think I'm crazy, and I'm training myself.
Where did that come from, Sonny? Where did the idea of being a motivational speaker while you were in that cell come from? That's just such an incredible imagination.
Because I read, I read, what book was it? I think Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl was one of the most influential tomes that I've ever read. And here's a man who is existing inside the Holocaust with death knocking on the door every single day. And he maintains a smile and helps all the people around him to maintain a healthy, happy, positive mindset. And it resonated with me so hard because of the trauma that I've been through in my life. I want to help somebody else hear that. I want somebody else to know that it's okay, right? Like what you're going through is building you. It's not breaking you. It's building you into something. And it's just a matter of perspective. It's how you see it. Do you see yourself as deteriorating? Because that's what's going to happen. If you see yourself as what I'm enduring right now is building me for something greater. And I took that and I thought, well, I can't just walk on a stage and talk to people because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I have to learn what I'm talking about. And so I practiced and and as I'm in my cell pacing and I'm talking out loud and my eyes are closed. I mean, I learned the entire cell. So I knew I could walk 7 steps this way and 7 steps that way. And I'm not going to hit anything. So now I can walk for 2 hours with my eyes closed and I'm just walking back and forth. And I'm not even in prison. I'm on a stage in front of thousands of people. And what am I going to say to these thousands of people? I'm going to tell you how to get over the stuff that you've been through in your life, how no matter what happens, I have been hurt in some of the craziest ways that you can physically be hurt. I've been emotionally damaged. And it doesn't define me. It doesn't define who I am. It doesn't dictate the next move in my life. It doesn't get to control how I walk through life. And that's what I want to tell you. And so how do I tell you that? I tell you like I just said it, and then I'll just say it again and again and again. And through that, I also learned that the power of our voice is what heals us, right? We have a voice like no other creature on the planet has the vocal cords that human beings have. And that's something special. That special tool that we have is what can heal us. The more you talk about it, the easier it is to talk about because you're processing that. right? It's like lifting weights in a weight room. When you first do it, it sucks. It's hard and it hurts, right? But the more you do it, the more you can lift, the easier it becomes, the stronger you get. It's the same thing with our voice. I can tell you that I've been raped. I can tell you that I've been molested. I can tell you all these things that have happened to me, and it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt me anymore because I've processed it. I've said it so many times that it doesn't hurt me. And you don't have to tell it to anybody. You can tell it to the wall. The wall is a fantastic listener, right? You can just pour it out. And so I learned not only that I wanted to be a motivational speaker, but I also learned how your voice can heal you. And I want to help people understand that. I want to teach people that. I want them to know, talk about it, say it, speak it, right? That's how you heal. And so that's what led me to that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's something else before Anna, you maybe on to our next thing. I just briefly want to talk to you about. I completely forgot it until now. I guess I was trying to surprise Anna, I guess almost. We have an ambassador, actually. She is an ambassador for Boo to Bullying. So, Sonny, can you tell us about Boo to Bullying? Why is that near and dear to your heart, please?
Well, I mean, I was bullied all of my life growing up through school. Being a victim of molestation puts an emotional and mental dichotomy inside of the mind of a child. Especially, I was a very extroverted kid that wanted to be funny. I wanted to make people laugh. I wanted to talk to people, but then I'm dealing with this emotional trauma that's happening from my molestation, and I don't know how to process it. So I'm now introverted. So having that dichotomy of being an extrovert with an introverted mindset, it destroys a kid. And not only that, it makes you a target because it comes off in your character. You don't have confidence. You don't take care of yourself hygienically, and that makes you a target in school. So I was bullied all school. Through my entire school career, I was bullied to the point where it started off just being ostracized from group events and being picked on and called names, to then getting hair pulled, being spit on and kicked, to full-on beatings from the football team in the locker room, and being stripped naked and stuck in a locker for hours on end because nobody knows you're in there. And those are very traumatic experiences, right? We can laugh about them because of the environment I grew up in. It's, boys will be boys. But this is a very traumatic thing to happen to a child who's already experiencing some horrible trauma in their life. And it's unhealthy, right? And so you learn to process those things. And if you don't, you're going to get stuck. Right. You're going to go down a bad path, and it's not even your fault, really. You just don't know how to deal with it. And so Boo to Bullying is an organization. It's a local nonprofit that goes into schools, and we talk to kids about how to deal with that trauma that you're dealing with if you're the target of bullying. And if you're a bully, what your actions, the consequences of your actions on somebody else's, it's a serious thing. Kids are killing themselves. They're taking their own lives at young ages because of bullying. And we grew up in a culture that says, kids will be kids, kids will be kids. We have to stop that narrative because kids are killing themselves. There's suicide going on out here because of bullying. And so we go into schools to teach the kids the reality of what bullying does, and then teach parents and teachers how to recognize bullying, to see it where it is and how to stop it, because 65% of bullying happens in the classroom. It's just a teacher that's not paying attention. And if you are a teacher, then you have chosen this profession, and you need to pay attention, and you need to, our children are in your hands to educate and to teach. And it's incumbent upon that person to pay attention to what happens in the classroom, so that this is not a thing. So we go into schools. We go to 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, primarily in middle schools and charter schools. And we go in and we talk to kids, man.
Wow, it's a subject that's close to my heart, both from my own childhood experience, but now having my own little ones and worrying, of course, about social media and everything you hear. It's such a dangerous environment for young people to grow up in. So that sounds like an incredible initiative. So important.
Yeah, it's awesome. You guys can check it out at boo2bullying.org. It's BOO, the number 2, bullying.org. It's an amazing thing.
So Sam, I have a few more questions and then we'll probably wrap up, I think. Is that okay? I feel like I could talk to you all for hours, and it's been such a valuable experience. So thank you, first of all.
Okay, you go ahead. I got a couple, and then we'll be good to go.
Perfect. Well, to be honest, it's just one question which I think is quite in common, and it's a little bit of what we talked about, but we talk about focusing on what really matters. And, I think of when my kids aren't sleeping, my little one is not sleeping so much, so I'm quite sleep deprived. And with no sleep, suddenly that becomes quite, the focus that I need to sleep. And that becomes my one focus. If you're very unwell, if you're sick, then you need to be healthy, right? And I just think, Joe, you mentioned when you had no food and shelter and you couldn't read and write and so on, to suddenly having those things, and now I hope you're comfortable and safe and with your loved ones. How do you, I suppose, remind yourself, not of the very sad things you've gone through, but how do you really stay focused and grateful for the things you have, and I guess not get caught up in these wrong things, as you mentioned, with a job, the car and the house or whatever. How do you really remind yourself of what's important?
Well, I'm an old man now. So the things that I had to deal with seems like so long ago that it was a lifetime ago, 2 lifetimes ago, because things have changed and I've become, about every 10 years, become a different person. And I look back when I first got married, we were sitting around the table eating, and there was somebody there eating with us. And I can't remember who they were, but I remember they were dipping food. And I thought, man, they're taking a lot, and it hit me. I thought, why do I care how much they're taking? We'll go to the store, we'll get more, and that one point there, and this was years ago, was a change in my whole mind. That I didn't even know was there. What are they doing? They're going to take all the mashed potatoes, but it hit me that it doesn't matter. There's plenty of potatoes at the store, but it's just time. As time goes by, different things happen. You become a different person, and I'm who I am today. And tomorrow I may be different, But
every day is a new beginning.
Every day is a new beginning.
And Sonny, you mentioned, and I'm glad you said this, because I have grown up in such what I recognize as privileged and very different world, and my very limited understanding of prison comes from TV shows and so on. So I mean, it's quite ridiculous. And yet, the one fear I have when I see those shows is exactly what you said, taking that freedom away. And the idea that something that we take so for granted, and we're so caught up in all these things that, in a way, of course they matter because they matter right now, but in the big scheme of things, and freedom is the one thing that I hear from my clients and from people that everybody longs for. And that's even from a place where, let's face it, we're pretty free to begin with. So same question to you, how do you remind yourself, now that you're out twice, I guess, and for each time, how do you keep that incredible, I guess, gratitude and sense of perspective on what matters?
I pay attention to my surroundings. I wake up every day thankful for this amazing blanket that I have on me. That is so soft. I'm an UGG addict. And everything we have is UGG blankets, UGG sheets, UGG pillows. And I wake up on a cloud, right, with this beautiful woman next to me. I wake up to my puppy in my face every day. And I'm thankful for that puppy being in my face, because I've never had a puppy in prison. Like, you don't have those. And those are the things you take for granted. The birds chirping and the sound of a lawnmower and people talking outside. I'm inundated with my surroundings because I just pay attention to it, right? I just wake up and I don't even get out of bed for the first 10, 15 minutes. I wake up, my wife generally gets up before me. She's a 5 o'clocker. She gets up and does her thing. But then she always comes in with a cup of coffee. Here's a cup of coffee from my favorite guy. And I just lay there for 10, 15 minutes, and I appreciate it. I appreciate my surroundings. And again, it's taking time to yourself to just look and think and look around. I spend the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of my day thinking, and I just lay there and I'm thankful. Denzel Washington is one of my role models in life. And he said to put your shoes underneath your bed, throw them underneath your bed as far as you can throw them back every night before you go to bed. So when you get up in the morning and you go for your slippers, you have to get down on your knees and put your face to the floor. And it will humble you, right? It reminds you just how little you actually have in this life and how small we are in this lifetime. And you humble yourself, right? And so you pay attention to what you have. And I mean, it's hard to tell somebody to imagine what it's like to lose it, because you can't really imagine what it's like to lose it until you do. Mm-hmm. And if I can help somebody avoid losing it, that would be a goal for me. That would be a success in my life. But just take that time, just 10 minutes when you wake up, just think of everything around you. And that's what I do. And then I walk outside and I see the sun, and just, I can't explain the euphoria that I feel every single day. Even if yesterday was the hardest day I've had in years, because I'm dealing with bureaucracy over a grease interceptor that cost $26,000 to put in for one espresso machine in my cafe. And it's frustrating. I still wake up every day in the same way. And I wake up appreciative, and it helps me to start my day off in that mindset of life is beautiful. Everything's beautiful. And then no matter what it's going on, life is still beautiful.
So simple and yet so difficult. And I think, I'm sure you've heard of these regrets of the dying, that I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd let myself be happier. I wish I'd stayed in touch with the people I loved. I wish I'd led a life that was true to myself. And we hear that and we say, yes, life is short. That's very important. And then we get on with our petty disputes and silly worries. And I think that the hardest thing for us is to own and feel and embody those insights without having to put ourselves through that hardship, I suppose, to get there. So I hope these reminders and those little tips, as you said, will shift people's thinking a little bit.
An unfortunate truth about life, though, is that pain is the ultimate educator, right? Pain is the ultimate educator. We don't grab fire for a reason, right? Like, we all learned that one real young. But we've all done it. We've all grabbed fire. And that's why we don't grab fire, because we know it hurts, right? So you don't do it. And it's unfortunate that in the macro sense, losing everything is what has taught me to appreciate everything. Do you know what I mean? And I'd love to try to help somebody avoid that.
Thank you.
This is final for me, I think. So these last was about spreading messages and sharing stories and staying why we need to speak up, which is my first question of it, is why is it important for others to speak up about their story?
I
got tons on this one.
Go ahead and give me a chance.
We grow up watching movies and books, or watching movies and TV shows and reading books, right? It's experience via somebody else's experience, right? It's my experience can help somebody else. It's so important because you don't know who's watching this. You don't know who's watching this and saying, that happened to me too. And by you speaking up, that person might find the courage to speak up. Right? It's important to speak because it can change somebody else's life who's listening to it. Somebody's going to hear it, and it might not help 99 of the people in the room, but it might help one. And if you help one person and you can change one person's life, it's worth it, right? It doesn't take, it doesn't require a lot of energy to speak, right? And so do it, and do it often. You have a beautiful voice, use it, speak. Because you never know who's listening.
Well, I find myself sometimes with my family, with my brothers and sisters, and we have no trouble talking about how things were. And if there's people around who know us and have known us for years, they think, how in the world did you turn out the way you guys have turned out? with these stories, and we don't only sit around and tell the stories, we laugh about it, and say, you remember this? Yeah, everybody remembered, but it was changed a little bit. But just to be around people who don't know what it's really like to be like that, and to see my whole family thinking, they went through this. How could they have possibly went through this and be who they are today? So hopefully when we do that, if somebody does learn something,
it's inspirational. It inspires people.
Yeah.
And Joe, do you feel it's important for the younger generations, I guess, to hear this, to again get a perspective, I guess, and to realize how lucky they are in a way?
It would be if they would listen, but the only way they're going to do it is.
Yeah.
You got to tweet it, Joe. You got to put it in a tweet.
Yeah.
Launch a podcast. We're ready for you.
Hashtag it.
Yeah. I might.
Hashtag the holler.
There you go.
And it is sad that the majority doesn't want to listen to that story, but there's a few or a slim percent that would want to hear the story. I mean, I'm one of them.
Yeah, but it would take a lifetime to tell you that.
Yeah, definitely take a lifetime.
And I suppose, as Sonny said, in a way that the pain is an inevitable part of human life. I suppose that each generation makes the same mistakes, makes different mistakes, and that is the cycle. Unfortunately, when we're young, we don't listen to the wiser older people, and so there we are. We make those mistakes, but that's just the nature of the human experience.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah, you come in the world thinking. I mean, I know there's a certain age you think you know everything. You think you're invincible. Try again.
But I like
That's the funny thing, Sam. We are invincible, right? We're unbreakable. People just don't realize it.
Yeah.
You can't break us, right? You only can be broken if you allow yourself to be broken, right? The only way to lose is to quit, right? If you never quit, you never lose.
I mean, I guess I can reword it. We're mentally unbreakable, but I mean, like, far as physically unbreakable.
Right. I know
That's
what you mean.
I get processed.
I think there's so much power in words and the way that we say things, right? If we pay attention to the way that we say things, we can change the narrative. You can really change it because there's so many idioms that have been just become part of the norm in our life. So we just accept it when we hear it, right? Like, nobody's unbreakable. Well, actually, we're all unbreakable. Every one of us. You cannot be broken unless you allow yourself to be broken.
And that's a great insight. I think part of all this redefining success is literally redefining words and looking at the language that we're using, because there's a lot of inherent, of course, gender discrimination or ageism or whatever, which is, we're not even realizing it's unconscious bias.
Sexism,
I think
sometimes.
all these things are, I think, important. Absolutely.
Facts. It's never too late. I started life when I was 35 years old.
That's the one, like you said, it's never too late to start. When did you would say you start? About like
this morning when I woke up.
Facts. I was just going to say it started this morning.
And hopefully I wake up tomorrow.
Facts. I'll start life again tomorrow.
Fine. And that's not too much to ask is honestly hoping to wake up tomorrow. I don't think.
But if I don't, Sam, remember me.
I will. You know that I will. Now, this is actually my last, and this is kind of a fun one. And this one you got to think about for a while, so you can actually start. Because I'm going to have to do some thinking. It's for all of us too, co-host and panelists. So, what song would you say is the representation of your life, and why?
There's several songs, I guess. But it'd be hard to pick one. I don't know. Do you guys know John Prine, the singer John Prine? There was one, something about Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County? But it's a song of the coal company came in and hauled it all away. And I've been back to where I'm from, and it's not there. Literally, it's not there anymore. I went back to where we lived, and time was the coal company. Time hauled it all away, and so I relate to that song quite a lot.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I guess mine would have to be, it's a hard one. There's a lot I could say, truth be told, but I would have to say, this is going to be kind of funny, but kind of true. Born to Be Wild, because, I
know that one. I can sing that in my head. I'm hearing it.
I opened my mouth. I knew that was coming the moment I opened my mouth.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, baloney.
You're pretty wild.
I know. But
Yeah. Okay.
there's a serious side to why I say it. It's because that, kind of like with you saying with the freedom, I was kind of trapped in my own sense. Because when I was at the school, I was a boy. I was lost. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I was going to be in life. I didn't know I'd be having a podcast. I thought I'd be in the basement playing video games or trying to do something that's probably either A, not going to lead me anywhere, or B, that's very not what society would say, oh, that's very successful. But after leaving the school, I became a man and started to have the freedom and starting to, in a sense, have this wild, fun side to where I'm like, okay, I can be extroverted. I can not live in societal norms.
I like it.
Didn't mean that.
I
was picturing a whole other.
I have way too many
representation though too, because my dad does own neighbors.
Yeah.
I have way too many songs for that. I'm again, music is my life. Like I'm so passionate about music. But if I had to narrow it down to a song that would, I think, represents my life, it's an oddball, right? It's Elton John, "The Circle of Life," because that song encompasses what life is, right, and what life is supposed to be, and what it's all about. I would have to go with that one, but I mean, I have a million other
Not quite the
songs
metal I was expecting there, but I like it.
No, well, I mean, there's a whole slew of metal songs too that could represent my life, but Elton John's "Circle of Life."
Oh goodness. Well, yeah, I can't possibly choose one, to be honest, and I wouldn't impress you with my choices. When I was little, Disney would have been high on the list, definitely, but I think there've been different songs for different moments.
I know a lot of people said Disney songs have represented their life.
Well, and also, to be honest, there's a reason for that, right? They really capture the essence of human existence. But I mean, when I quit my job, there was a song from a musical called Wicked, Defying Gravity, and it was all about taking a leap and trusting. So that was a theme. Avicii's Wake Me Up, I think I had when I also through a phase, and some of the country songs, to be honest, the Take Me Home, Country Roads, those kinds of, it just depends on what's happening in your life, I think, and they sort of support the soundtrack. Don't Stop Me Now, Queen was the one that first came to mind. I'm having such a good time. I feel like there's some kind of positive energy there. But anyway, yeah, many songs. But what a great question, Sam. You cheated there. You didn't give us a chance to prepare, but next time I'll be ready with a song. It's hard to pick.
I want to surprise you.
I love it. Well, look, I actually would love to. That was a great.
I
want to change my song.
Okay.
Country Road. You're right.
You see? Oh, good. Well, maybe for all of us, because everyone was nodding along. It's a good one, isn't it?
Almost Heaven. Yeah. West Virginia. Man, that song's great.
Good. Well, at least that's one.
I like it, but after a while, like shut down. It's like, okay, what's exciting about it? Okay, cool.
Well, it's that. It really is. Yeah. For me, it's and even road tripping across the states. It's sort of very, but it's
a great song choice. I want to argue with you guys there.
I think we can do a whole other podcast episode on our musical choices. I think to wrap up, I wanted to ask a final question, because just coming full circle, we talked about what success means now, and we talked about happiness and surviving in a way. We also talked about success being accomplishment, achieving some kind of goal. So I'm curious, Joe, you talked about who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Do you have any thoughts on, do you have a goal that you're working towards, or some exciting thing that you're thinking about for the future?
No, I've like I said, I'm an old man, and I'm just like you said, I'm just going to wake up in the morning when I want, and I have no alarm clock, and I'll wake up and think, okay, what am I going to do today?
Oh, motivated with autism. No, I'm kidding.
But I have to help Sam. Sam, he's what I do, but I have usually no plans. It's
a great way to live.
I think, oh, great, I'm going to have to waste my time away until I have to go over to Sam's at noon.
Oh.
But, no, I have no plans. Just to be with my kids and grandkids and love my wife, and that's all I got to do.
What you should do?
I may go to the casino tomorrow.
Well, I mean, honestly, you're focusing on what matters, although I do think you should launch a podcast, so we might have to get behind you on that one. Sam, briefly, what about you? What's your next goal?
Well, I mean, briefly, this is kind of what relate to. You have adventures like that you drive and you don't know about. You should definitely mention a little bit what they are. You don't have to get in the full picture.
Well, every weekend, my wife, me, and my neighbors, a couple, we call it our adventure. We get in the car and we go. We don't know where we're going. Sometimes we'll drive 100 miles to eat lunch, but we don't know where we're going. Just senior citizen drive.
I love that.
But we call it our adventure.
I think the adventure is better than the senior citizen drive as far as branding goes. Yes, but I love that. You don't know where you're going and you're just enjoying the journey together. That's beautiful.
It turns out to be an adventure sometimes. Seems like it's not going to be, and then all of a sudden we're in a tornado. That did happen to us.
You have to tell me that story. I did not know that happened to you.
That's an adventure.
What was the question? I got excited.
You're next. I know you've got lots of exciting things that you're doing, Sam. So what's on the horizon for you? What are you thinking for next year? What are you focusing on?
Okay, thank you. Well, on the horizon, I guess I would say is, just trying to spread the acceptance of autism, just going more into this nonprofit. Hopefully I can make this into a career. One thing I can probably share is I'm in Ivy right now. I mean, it's kind of not exciting at the moment, but it will be exciting. Is I'm taking an accounting class to get a business degree in the future. So we'll definitely see how that goes. So not exciting right now. But when I get it, you bet I'll be having a celebratory and go get some wings.
That's exciting, and the hardest part is the journey to get there, right? So by all means, celebrate the degree, but celebrate the progress that you're making now as well, because that's hard. Oh, great. Okay, and Sonny, what about you?
Opening this cat cafe. That's first. And expanding my photography business. I just opened my own studio. And so I have a headshot portrait studio here in Palm Springs. So excited about that. Excited about this cafe and getting this open. But to Joe's thing, yesterday is a memory and tomorrow is a wish, right? I live today and I'm going to do my best to make today as good as I possibly can make it. And so I again focus every day on living it to its best, because if I die right now, I want to be able to say I left the way I wanted to. I lived Frank Sinatra. I did it my way, right?
And another good song.
and that's what drives me. So I got those things coming up. I might start a new podcast. I've been thinking about it. I've done a lot of them in my past on my old YouTube channel. I've been getting the itch to want to jump in and do podcasting again. So you never know. I absolutely enjoyed.
But if you want guests, you got one, you got another.
You've got guests, you've got listeners, you've got a ready-made audience for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's definitely something that I am considering. So, but right now it's cat cafe and photography. So got to put one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely. But I loved what you both just said there. And I think that's the key takeaway I'm taking as well, being present and focusing on today, because it's so easy to get caught up in these goals and ambitions, and even in a positive sense, to be working towards something and having that sense of purpose, when actually it's the simple waking up those 10 minutes in the morning, as you said, Sonny, and going for a drive and not knowing where you're ending up, and being with your wife, being with your partner, being with your puppy, whatever that is in your life. I think that's a lovely reminder of what really matters. I have to say thank you so much. This was a little out of my comfort zone too, because as I said, my focus is usually a pretty unconventional path, as it were. So I've been so intrigued by your stories, and I'm so grateful for your willingness to step into our strange idea that we had, Sam and I. And also a huge thank you to Sam for doing this with me, because I've loved it. I've loved today, and I know it's such a valuable audience. And as you said, Sonny, whether it's one person or 10 or 100 who hear this and take something away, we will have done our job. And I've
my pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Always good to see you, Sam. And I look forward to talking to you guys in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Reimagining Success with Anna Lindberg. Before you go, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. I'll be back next week. I'll see you then.